Good evening and welcome to Sports Beat with Craig Dahlen on PATV Channel 18. I'm Andy Knebel, and tonight Craig's guest is former City High track coach and author John Raffensperger. And now, ladies and gentlemen, here's Craig!
Thank you, Andy, for that wonderful introduction. Sports fans, we got a good one for you today. Andy, how you been?
I've been doing real good, Craig. How about you?
It's good to see you. We haven't done a
Thanks.
show for a while.
It has been a few months.
Yeah.
It's good to be back.
So let's catch up. What have you been doing lately?
Well, in the fall, I was doing the play-by-play announcing for Cornell College football in Mount Vernon. I did all the home games for them via a webcast.
Okay.
And so we had players from all over the country, and that way their families could catch in on all the games. And I did some public address announcing for the University of Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
Just wrapped up the Hawkeye Invitational swim and dive meet for them. And, tomorrow night I've got, I've done some boxing ring announcing, and tomorrow night an MMA show at the Wildwood.
Really? So
Yeah.
you've been quite busy. Now this Cornell gig here, now that kind of goes back to Marv Levy, right? He was involved with them at one time, right? And did Fred Jackson?
No, that's Co.
Oh, it was Co.
Come on, you know, the Co-Cornell,
I knew
that's
that.
a big rivalry.
I knew that. I knew that.
That's the oldest rivalry west of the Mississippi.
Okay.
Co's and Cedar Rapids. No, I'm working with Cornell.
That's right. I meant Co.
Right.
So, but anyway, yeah, Fred Jackson and Marv Levy there.
Oh, yeah, that's such a great story.
Yeah, that is. And he's having a great year with the Bills. Well, I believe he's hurt right now.
Yeah,
But he got to the Bills via arena football. I think it's better than the Kurt Warner story. Because Fred Jackson goes Division III, football in Sioux Falls, arena football, I believe. Mm-hmm. From there, European football, Europe Football League. And then from there, boom, Marv Levy says, hey, you got to take a look at this guy. He tells the Bills organization that, and they're like, all right, we'll take a look at him. And sure enough, he's their number one back now.
Right.
So that's a great success story.
That is. There was a similar story a few years back. There was a running back from Co that led all of Division III. I think maybe he broke all the records at the college level as a rusher, and the Bills gave him a look. He didn't quite make it as high as Fred Jackson.
Who was that guy?
You know, his name escapes me. I want to say Kerry.
Kerry? Oh, I know who you're talking about. That's for the next show. We're going to look that up. Or if any of you Sports Beat fans know that, the last running back for Co.
So, yeah, it was maybe more than 10 years ago, but that's a good Buffalo, Cedar Rapids, Co-College connection there.
Well, Marv's helped. He helped that guy get there too, did he?
He did, yeah.
Okay. Oh, good. And you've been doing some boxing and some work for the University of Iowa with like swimming or what?
I announced the diving portion of the Hawkeye Invitational, and we had 6 or 7 schools in town at the new, it's the second year for the aquatic facility there at the CWRC. And because that's such a beautiful facility, they've been getting a look for some high-profile events.
So when you announce like swimming, you just say who's up, right? You don't say, okay, he's one jump, two. You just basically say you're the master of ceremonies in that building, right? But you don't. How's that work?
Well, for the diving, I announce who's on the board and what level of platform they're on for the judges, so the judges know where to look. There's several platforms there, and the style or the type of dive that they're going to attempt, and then the score. Okay.
Oh, nice. Good deal. Well, let's talk Hawkeye football.
Let's do that.
Now, our record is 7-5.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I think most fans hope we'd been about 9-3 about now. You know, you look at a couple of games on the road that we could have won.
Hawk fans love to see those 9-3, 10-2 seasons make us walk pretty proud. You know, there were a couple of years there where we finished in the top 10, a couple of years in a row, high-profile January bowl games. Well, this isn't that kind of team. You know, like we were talking earlier, we're not a 10-2 team with a 7-5 record, you know.
Right.
There are, 3 games, they're all on the road that we lost.
Yep.
I think we'd all like to have back, like the Iowa State, triple overtime.
Yep.
Penn State.
They kind of, to me, their offensive line, I don't know. Well, towards the end, just kind of took that game over, though, too. But, in that Penn State game, so many flukes at the beginning of the game for their offense. I mean, balls were bouncing off our DBs everywhere into the hands of Penn State, and just a lot of fluke plays. But it just seemed like, I don't know, see if you think so too. It seemed like towards the end of that game, they had us. They were just their offensive line just kind of wore us down, and our defensive line, I think they just wore us down in that game. Yeah. That, to me, as far as the road games go, I don't know, you might agree or disagree, but I thought the Penn State game, they took it to us, but the other two games obviously were winnable. Go to Minnesota, that's a hard pill to swallow. That 2 years in a row going to Minnesota and getting beat.
It seems like every year we have one of those games that just kind of makes you feel like you got hit in the stomach.
Yeah.
And the pain lasts for a while.
Yeah,
and
right.
This year it was that Minnesota game.
Yeah.
And that was the third one I was going to get to, Iowa State, Penn State, and Minnesota. Yep. If they could have somehow came out on top of those, then we are a 10-win team, but we're not.
But we're not. But then a week after the Minnesota game, Michigan comes to town, and we take care of Michigan for the third year in a row. That, to me, that was a fun win, because Michigan, they beat a lot of good teams this year. They're in the BCS game, which they shouldn't be, because Michigan State beat them. Michigan State's not, I don't believe they're in a BCS game. They were in the title game. They're taking Michigan over Michigan State in the BCS game, and granted, and Michigan State beat Michigan for the fourth year in a row.
Yeah.
I don't like this BCS jumbo.
No, if you ever get it figured out, explain it to me, because it
makes a mockery out of major college football, I think, and it's a bummer. I mean, you can see these games, and the bowl games are a lot of fun. There's 85 bowl games or something? I think there's 35.
Yeah, 35.
But it seems to make a mockery out of it, because the champion is like a mythical champion. I mean, you got the SEC playing for the championship this year. That don't seem right.
Right. Football is a game that should be won on the scoreboard and record against record, and not left up to some kind of judging type of system. So,
right. It's a lot of politics.
Yeah.
Full of politics, isn't it?
Could be.
Yeah. So what do you think about Hawkeye basketball, men's basketball?
Wow. Today, the day we're taping, we're at 5-4. Maybe not playing all that well. Sometimes I think the coach would like to get out there and play the game himself.
He's a madman.
He's, coming off that UNI game. He was very animated, Coach Fran.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how this season moves along. I'd like to see a great senior year for Matt Gatens.
Oh, I know.
I'd like to see something positive come out of this year. Maybe,
right.
Some big wins, or maybe an NIT berth at the very least.
It seems we're a little slow out of the starting gate this year. You got Cartwright's hurt. Gatens kind of started strong. Now, you know who I like to watch at that UNI game? Was fun with that Devin Marble.
Yes.
He was at the point, running the point. He at times he just looked so smooth.
He did.
I mean, that guy.
He's going to have an exciting career, and we know he's got the genes for it.
Yep.
And I think Coach Fran had some positive things to say about him in his press conference too.
Now that was a 2-point game, and Coach Fran, he kind of had a meltdown, didn't he?
He
Couple
did.
Tees.
He did. He was upset with some of the officiating. I have a good friend that was courtside for that game, right near Coach, and so I know that he was upset with some of the officiating.
He's got a lot of passion, though, running through his veins, and you can tell it. He's going to be a great coach here. I see that happening. He's a great recruiter. But hopefully we can kind of work on maybe the emotions. I don't know. I'm not out there. How can I say? I'd probably be throwing chairs like Bobby Knight.
Yeah. Oh, no.
No. But, I mean, you can see he's full of passion.
Right. And he is a recruiter, and that's what it takes to win at Iowa, is because and a lot of it's because of the climate, and basketball is played in the wintertime, and so we want to get the right kind of players, but the talented players, and I think he has got a great shot at doing that.
I think we're going to be fine. I think they're going to be fun to watch. And hopefully like last year they got better really, really quite good at the end of the year. So hopefully they'll be a nice. I just want things under control. Hopefully that we got some great players coming, and as long as he just keeps teaching them and doing his thing, I think they'll be fine. Let's talk about Oklahoma, Iowa football bowl.
Right, Hawk fans are excited to be going to a bowl game.
Oh,
When we got that 7th win, we thought it was pretty much a sure thing. It's just a matter of where do we go, and it's back to the desert.
Yeah,
for the Inside Bowl.
We did good there last year.
We did.
Yep.
Against Missouri, we came out on top, so that's 3 bowl wins in a row.
Yep.
For Coach Ferentz, and the Oklahoma fans may not be too happy.
They're not. They're bumming. They're bumming. They started the year number 1. They were preseason number 1, and they lost the wideout Broyles. Great quarterback with Landry Jones. That's his name, Landry Jones?
I believe so.
Yeah. I think they named him after Tom Landry. Tom Landry was my favorite coach ever. Former coach of the Dallas Cowboys.
That's right.
I grew up watching him. But anyway, that was a side note. But Oklahoma, sure, they start the year off number 1. They have these huge hopes of possible national championship, aspirations in the year. They've lost their last 3 out of 4.
Possible. I know the last 2 out of 3.
They've lost. Yeah, they got creamed by Oklahoma State. The end of the year bad. This game, to me, boils down to mentally. How's Oklahoma going to get their players up for this game? I think I think you put a big slash mark right there for Iowa as far as mental. If there's an edge to be gained there, the reason I say that and think that is because our guys, okay, they did the year. I think a little bit of a coaster, but traditionally we get a month to prepare for somebody. Norm does a great job with the defense, and Ken O'Keefe and the staff, Kirk Ferentz, we seem to do real good with time to prepare.
I agree. We talked about the Orange Bowl with Georgia Tech, and they had the Wildcat offense, and everybody was predicting that we wouldn't even understand it, and it was going to be a blowout, and don't even watch the Orange Bowl. And of course, we came out and took care of them.
Yeah.
And then the Missouri game last year. I like Ferentz and Norm when they have that much time to prepare for a bowl game. They've been to enough of them. They know how to control the players. They know how to schedule enough practice time with fun time and still get their players focused for the game. And there is that chance that the Oklahoma team is going to be maybe disappointed, think that they were dissed a little bit. They deserve something better. I'd like to think that Coach Stoops could get them beyond that if they weren't playing the Hawks.
Yeah.
But one thing that scares me about this game, Oklahoma scores a lot of points, even when they lose. I mean, they had one game where I think they only scored 10 and they lost.
Right.
But they'll score in the high 20s and in the low 30s even in a loss. And if you think about the Hawkeye defense this year, that's what concerns me about this game is Oklahoma can score. Now with this receiver out though, the last 3 games, they've sputtered on offense quite a bit.
Jones is go-to guy, Broyles. Yeah, I think the key is going to be how our defensive line can get off the blocks. I mean, get their motors going because they got to get in his face. I think our offense is going to be fine. I think our offensive blocking is going to be good, and I see Coker having another big day, and I see Vandenberg ending the year on a high note too.
Yeah,
but it's our defense, and they've been doing good as of late. So I see some good things coming here.
I think it's too hard to call. I think the initial line coming out of Vegas was 16. Iowa's 16-point underdog. That's probably I don't usually look at those kind of things, but I heard somebody talking about it on the radio, so I looked it up. I think it's probably come down a bit by then. I think the game's too hard to call, and a lot of it has to do with these intangibles that we talked about. But because I'm a Hawk fan, I'm going to come out and say Iowa 28-24.
Okay. Well, because I'm a Hawk fan, I'm going to say Iowa 21, Oklahoma 17.
Oklahoma
I
17.
really am going to
So
say
you think
that.
our D's going to step up and keep that
Yeah, I
offense
really
down?
do.
Okay.
I really do. Yeah, I think it's going to go that way, 21-17.
Well, we'll see. It's a late start on December
30th.
December 30th.
7 p.m. or something.
I think it's 9 o'clock
Yeah.
our time.
Okay, yeah, I don't want to say. It's just December 30th. Check
December
your papers.
check your
Check your papers.
Check your papers
Check
for
the
that one.
newspaper, Sports Beat fans. Oh, the final thoughts, real quick, on the Iowa-Oklahoma game. Now, it's true. Landry Jones has not thrown a touchdown in the last 3 games.
That's right. And Oklahoma went on and lost 2 of those 3 games.
Yeah.
So it would be one thing if they had won those 3 games, but if you're highly ranked, highly sought after quarterback is not throwing touchdown passes, chances are you're not going to win.
If you talk to Mel Kiper or Todd McShay or whoever, they're going to say he's a first-round quarterback in the NFL. And to not have thrown any, so what I'm saying, something's going on there with their passing game.
Mm-hmm.
And the way it looks, the indications are Broyles will not be back for that game. Time will tell. We'll have to see. But that's a key thing, Hawk fans. If Broyles comes back too, but I mean to capitalize on that could really be a big thing. So
yeah, that could certainly work for Iowa's favor. And like I talked about, they did score a lot of points, but that was when they had Broyles and Landry Jones, clicking together on offense and on the same page.
For sure. And also too, last year in the game against Missouri, we had some interceptions. We had some big plays happen. Some key plays. Mm-hmm. And so hopefully this game we can have some playmakers step up and do some of that, because we're going to have that.
We're going to have that. We can play with anybody, but we're going to need some breaks like that, solid special teams play,
Yep.
and everybody playing hard for 60 minutes on both sides of the ball. But I think we can win the game because I believe we can play with anybody if we don't make our own mistakes.
Yes, for sure. Are you a Green Bay Packers fan?
There's a soft spot in my heart for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah.
There
There should be. They're the only team in the NFL that's owned by individuals.
Right.
My friend, I call him up. He lives in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And the Packers do good, I say, hey, your team did good. And I actually mean that. He's part owner.
Yep, it's his team.
Because about
You think he can
20
get me-
years ago, he bought a share for $120 or something.
Think he can get us tickets?
I doubt it.
Those are some hard tickets to get, aren't they?
I don't know.
I've
I
heard
think
that.
they are hard to get, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're municipally, like a municipality. They're owned by the people.
Owned by the people.
So that's kind of a neat thing. But anyway, the reason I asked you that is because Aaron Rodgers is having such an incredible year.
Yep.
Just like last year. And I thought it was interesting. When he was sitting on the bench, waiting his time, riding the pine behind Brett Favre, he told his agent, he said, get a hold of Steve Young, if you would, for me. And he got his phone number. He called Steve Young up because Steve Young had to endure the same things being behind Joe Montana.
Mm-hmm.
So he got a hold of Steve Young. Steve Young called him back. And Aaron asked him, he says, hey, how did you deal with that situation? Being behind him like that? And how did you stay positive? And how did you deal with it, basically? And quote, I'm going to read you what what Steve Young told Aaron Rodgers. And this is a quote here. He says, what's really important is never, ever allow yourself the cheap thrill of saying something just to make yourself feel better a moment, because something is fair or not right. That always backfires on you. It never works out in the long run. So basically what he's saying is, don't say nothing, don't say anything bad to the media, about this. Don't say anything bad about Brett Favre. Just keep it inside and know that you're going to get your time. Because and Aaron Rodgers, he said he thought that was just such good advice, and it helped him so much. Because you never heard any ill words come from his mouth directed at Favre, did you?
No, you never did. He didn't give anybody a quote or a tweet or anything.
Yeah.
Anything to run with, and neither did Steve Young. I mean, when you think about Steve Young, you think about what a great quarterback he was, and he could have started for somebody else.
Yeah.
And you think of his great legacy, and that he was a good person. You don't think, oh, Steve Young, well, he did this, but
Right.
Because he doesn't have a bad butt
Right.
moment in his career. And so, yeah, I think that's great advice. And Aaron Rodgers is really, he's really on a tear. What are they now, 12-0, 13-0?
Yep.
And with a pretty favorable schedule.
Real favorable. They just have
Well, they have Denver, but...
Yeah. Well, and T-Bone, that's a whole nother story. Well, that's been amazing what he's done.
Yeah, they're really...
I love to see it because those guys that were ranking the guys who you draft, like Mel Kiper and McShay, they were just, how could Denver take Tebow? Because they know everything about everything. But he's holding his own. What is he, 5-1 as a starter?
I believe so.
It's fun to see. A lot of the people are saying, well, it's because of the defense. But the thing about Tebow is he hasn't turned the ball over.
Right.
And he, last week, he had over 200 yards passing. And I like him. I like the guy.
Yeah, I do too.
I mean, he stands for good things. He's, he really, he talks about God a lot. He's a strong Christian. I know that. And in my book, that's good. I know everybody has their own opinions, and I won't go into it. But I guess that is why I like the guy a lot, and I think it's fun to see him doing good. How long it'll last depends on how much he can progress as a quarterback and a passer, though.
Yeah, I think it's good for the league, and just because I like to see different things happen, and get mixed up, and the league changes. Here we got, well, for a while Detroit was riding the wave, and now the Colts are down, and it's not the same.
Right.
It's just not the same as it was last year, even 2 years ago.
The NFL is called not for long.
Not for long, and
because teams change. I mean, this team could be great that year and down the next year. It's just like, the NFL not for long. But it does add a great storyline to the National Football League.
It sure does.
So, Andy, I appreciate you coming on the show. I appreciate you as always. Well, not coming on the show, you're a part of the show. You're a huge integral part of the show.
That's right.
So I appreciate it.
Thanks, man.
And we're going to see you next time.
Sounds real good.
Okay.
Let's do it again.
You bet. Sports Beat fans, up next we have John Raffensperger, former City High track coach. Welcome to the adventures of Captain Cubby. We join the captain as he lays in a coffin lifeless after another dismal year for the Cubs. The Cubs have not won a World Series since 1908. This remains the longest championship drought in North American professional sports.
All right, let me hear you.
Theo Epstein is the new president of baseball operations for the Chicago Cubs. Epstein was the general manager for the Boston Red Sox when they won the World Series in 2004 and 2007. Captain Cubby, arise from the beyond and lead in the rebirth of the mighty Chicago Cubs as Theo Epstein leads them into the new millennium. Well, I have a treat for us here today. John Raffensperger's here, former City High track coach, and he wrote the book, It's a Great Day to Be a Little Hawk. Welcome to the show, John.
Thanks, Craig. Glad to be here.
Now, you were a history teacher at City High, correct?
Yes. Yep.
So what prompted you to write the book?
Well, it kind of combines two of my main interests, history and athletics, and I was a coach there and in multiple sports, in football and track primarily, and I actually started by doing some research about the history of City High track and trying to establish like a top 10 list of events and times and distances and so on, and I did that, and then after I had that compiled, I thought, well, maybe I could do that for some of the other sports too, just as a service for the school, and I really had no intention at that time of writing a book, but eventually, after I retired from officially teaching, I decided I'll give that a try.
Yeah, so how long of a period of time did this take to write?
Well, when you stop and think that I started it in as early as 1970, it took me quite a while. But I did a lot of research at different times, and once I started with the idea of actually writing the book, it probably took about 8 months or so after because I already had the information for the most part. I just had to tie down some things and get some quotes and things from some of the former athletes because I didn't want it to have just a book full of statistics, because that's be kind of boring. But I wanted to add a lot of other things in there, and which I did. So.
Well, you won 10 state track titles at City High from 1970. You were a coach to 2004. So let's just start with track in the book.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit. Let's talk a little bit of City High track.
Well, the City High, most of the athletics that took part in City High, my book starts in 1905, but there was actually some athletics before that, but it wasn't school sponsored. It would be, it wasn't officially sponsored by the school. 1905, 1906 was the first years that they really actually officially sponsored athletic teams. So in track and football and basketball were the three sports that they had, and baseball at that time.
Yeah, in 1905.
Right, and that evolved from there. And each sport, and there's been a good history of City High track having success over the years. We had two men that were on the Olympic team in 1924. It was if you were familiar with the movie Chariots of Fire, that was the movie from about the 1924 Olympics.
Right.
And Chan Coulter and Eric Wilson were both City High grads, and they were both on the Olympic team that year.
Did they have that book? Did it at all? Were they included in the movie? Their
Not specifically, but Eric Wilson was actually in one of the races that was featured was the 400 meters, and Eric was in the 400 meters. He didn't make the finals. He was actually set the American record in the Olympic trials, but then in the finals he didn't make the actual finals.
Right out of high school he set the
Well,
American
no, he was
record.
actually from the university at that time.
Okay.
He was running at the university when he was in the Olympics. Chan Coulter was in the 400 hurdles, and he was in the finals and fell, hit a hurdle and fell, unfortunately, didn't get a medal, but he was in the finals of that race. So it was a pretty nice honor for those two guys.
So you coached many a good athlete in track. Let's talk about briefly your top 5.
Well, yes, obviously you can't win a bunch of state titles without great athletes.
Right.
The great athletes are what does it in any sport. I assume that Tim Dwight and Joey Woody could certainly be starters at the top. Tim Dwight won either individual or relays 12 different state titles. No one's ever won more than 12 in the state history. Joey Woody was one of the top runners and went on to be a national champion in the intermediate hurdles, and then he just missed the Olympic team in 2000. And was second in the World Games in Paris in 2001, which is a non-Olympic year.
Mm-hmm.
Those two certainly would be probably the top, but near them would be Calvin Davis, who is a multiple state champion and is still the current all-time record holder in the state of Iowa for the 400 meters. And Jason Ringena, who also won multiple state championships, and was his times are ranked very close with Tim Dwight and Calvin Davis, and then also Jeremy Mims, who more recent time was a professional athlete, and he ran for Kansas and was a sub 150, 400 or 800 meter runner. So I guess those would be some of the top people. Bill Knebel was also, he was the first state champion that I ever had, and he was a high jumper.
Okay.
And at one time was the top high jumper in what they call the straddle jump before the flop in the world. He jumped 7 feet 4, and he was he is the Iowa record holder, the University of Iowa record holder in the high jump.
I seen that he jumped in high school like 6'7"
in high school,
6'7", and then he
was
goes
7'2"
to 7.
at Iowa, and then he was 7'4" after he left Iowa.
Where'd he
too,
go?
so.
Where'd he go jump after Iowa?
Well, I mean professionally. I mean
7'4". That's amazing.
Yeah, it is.
To think that that part I never knew at all.
Yeah, he was. I believe he was a runner-up in the NCAA in the high jump one year. So
One thing I learned here too by reading this book, my doctor in town, Dr. John Kelly,
yes.
in 1960, in the
Probably
60s,
62
63,
or- somewhere in
64,
there. 64 probably.
he was one of the top dog sprinters around. I noticed it said, in your words, he did a trifecta at the district track meeting. Won the 100, 200, and 400. And I
Correct.
believe at state he got 4th in the 200.
Yeah, I don't remember. He did not win any of those 3 events, but he
No.
was a good runner. He was a 2 or 3 year, maybe longer or more than that letter winner at Iowa later on.
Yeah, I know. I went into his office. It's been a couple months ago, and I seen this picture on the wall. It was him running track at the university, and I asked him about it, and he told me, he says, yeah, well, they had just Iowa just won the Big Ten track meet.
Correct.
And the last time we won it was 1967, and he was on that team.
Right, along with head coach Larry Wazork,
Yeah.
they were teammates on that team.
Right,
yes.
on that team. So I never knew that about my doctor, and that was interesting. But yeah, he was in the book, and
Yeah, there's been
So-
a lot of great athletes come through City High in multiple sports, and so it's a great place to coach and teach.
oh, definitely. Now, talk a little bit about football, or actually, I want before that, I want to talk about your story about how women's athletics started at City High.
All right. Yes, and the book actually is every sport and both men and women. So it has every sport chronicled. The first actual athlete to compete for the City High women's sports was a woman by the name of Mona Shalau, who was as a junior in high school was an outstanding tennis player on the like the junior circuit in around the state of Iowa. And the City High did not have a tennis team for women. They didn't have any sports for women. The smaller schools did, and the state of Iowa had a tennis competition. And she and her dad petitioned the school board to allow her to compete for City High in the district tennis meet as a junior in high school, and she won the district. And then she went on, of course, to the state meet, and she won the state title. So she became the first woman athlete at City High to ever win a state title. Then the next year, which would be her senior year, they actually had an entire team. So that was the first team to represent City High in any competition.
So to get that initiated, they had to push
Right,
through.
yeah, they did.
Her father did that, and then she wins the state title. But
Right.
did that first state title, was she attached to City High, or was
Yes,
she?
she was representing City High, but they had no team and no coach. I mean, she just was there by herself, and then interesting enough, 2 years later or 3 years later, I guess, the swimming did the exact same thing. A group of girls who were representing the Iowa City Swim Club petitioned the school board to be able to represent City High in the district swim meet, which they did, and they won, and then they won the state title, and they were all freshmen. And they were. That's before freshmen were in the high school, so they were in the junior high.
Yeah, right.
And so it was. So that's how they got the first 2 athletic teams were actually pushed through kind of legislation. So
Sure,
and
sure.
Then each year they added a few more sports.
Well, that's how they get it going.
Yes.
You know? Now, I liked your one story, and I didn't see it about the player who they were practicing in the gym, but the player, he got burnt because he fell.
Yeah,
against the
it
wood
actually
stove or
was
something.
a game that they were playing. It was a player by the name of Ken Moss, whose family has been here, and in fact I coached his grandson in track at City High. But anyway, he was playing for City High in the 1930s, and I think this occurred at Vinton. They're playing a basketball game at Vinton in the early 30s, and they have in the corner, like a typical little town, they have a pot-bellied stove to keep the place warm. And one of the City High players got knocked into the pot-bellied stove and burned his butt on the stove, and he gave me that story when I was asking him if he had some anecdotes that he could give me. So I thought that was kind of typical of a small town type of operation in the 30s, I guess.
Well, that would not be a good feeling there. But well, there's other stories too. The one story that I enjoy too is the how it came about, the Battle of the Boot. In the book, I mean, I'll let you tell it, but basically it started because Bob Kodros had left a boot, just a shoe in the locker room, and
the first time that the City High and West played football, West High opened in the fall of '68, and they're going to play football against City High.
We should preface this by saying City High, all the kids were going to City High until, 1960?
Till the fall of '68.
And then fall of '68, we got West.
Basically half of those kids went to West High then.
Yep, and then all of a sudden we got, and then the battle.
So, and they were not in the same conference. They weren't in the Mississippi Valley Conference yet. West wasn't, and but we were going to play them in football. And they wanted to have some kind of a thing, so those two student councils got together, and they said, well, let's have some kind of a little trophy for the game. And so they came through, and Bob Kodros, who was a player at that time at West, who had actually started playing at City High, and then he was now at West, and a guy named Steve Holland, who was later a writer for the Press Citizen and the Muscatine paper. But anyway, they got together and they found this old high top shoe, football shoe, and they had it bronzed and mounted it on a trophy, and then that was the first. Then they were going to give that to the winning team, and so that's where it started. From that.
Yeah, it sounds like they were in the locker room, and all of a sudden, I don't know if it was Bob's shoe or somebody's shoe.
It was Bob Kodros' shoe, an old shoe that he wasn't going to wear anymore. It was a high top shoe, and it's just, with one spike missing, I remember, and it was just really a kind of a unusual situation, but it was a really nice story, and it became quite a tradition, of course.
Yeah, that's neat. See, his dad, Archie Kodros, Bob's dad, was a former coach here at University of Iowa in the 50s, actually when Iowa won the Rose Bowl and ended up being #1 that year. So that's a little side note. So his boy, ended up doing that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Well,
that was good. Those couple of years there, a lot of those kids who had gone to City High, and then they switched schools when West High opened. And if you lived on the west side of town, you went to West. And,
sure.
So there was a lot of those kids really were good friends, and they knew each other, and so it was a different kind of rivalry for a couple of years for sure when they all went to school together. So
yeah, and a sad part of this story is some hoodlum broke into City High, stole some things, and one of the things that he took was that boot.
Yeah, that was about 10 years later, I think, or sometime later, and that was, they had to make another one, and
they made another boot.
Very similar type of a shoe, but but a little bit different. But it's been a great tradition, and it's been it's got a nice rivalry. It's been pretty low key, and there's never been any big incidents between the schools, and it's really a nice thing over the years.
It's
and
very
both teams
good.
look forward to that game every year.
Yep, a lot of guys from both teams, more from City, but West has gotten more over the years too that go on to play for the University of Iowa. Clay Hargrave era, played for City High in the 70s. You must have felt he probably one of the better players to go through City High.
Yeah, I think so. It's hard to compare different eras, but he had so much talent, and he went on to play at the University of Iowa and under Lute Olson. And in fact, he led the Big Ten in rebounding one year, and he's only 6'4.5".
Yeah.
Tremendous leaper and a great scorer. I think he holds the City High record for rebounds in one game of 32, I believe.
Ooh.
And the most points ever in the game was 40 points that he scored one year. And when he played, the dunk shot in high school was illegal. So he
Okay.
couldn't dunk, but he could touch the top of the fan-shaped backboard. Just an incredible jumper. And of course, you know, he played that at Iowa in the era when you could.
So when he would go up to dunk instead of would he just go up
He
there?
just had to drop it
drop
in,
it
yeah,
through?
or you know, or shoot, you know, short bank shots and so
Whatever.
on. I mean, he just was such a, and they had a lot of alley-oop passes, you know, and but like I say, it was in, you know, he couldn't. It was against the rules, and at that time to dunk.
Yeah.
So,
So he went on
but
to play for
yes,
Iowa.
he was just a great individual player, and they had a great team. I think until the probably until the team that Matt Gatens was on as a senior that won the state title was probably that City High team from '72 was probably the best team, and they were 20-2 that year.
Yeah.
And their second loss was in the state tournament. And
Yeah.
they were 20-1 going in the state tournament.
Well, yeah, you might have some people watching this show and they'll say, I think Matt Gatens is right up there with this Clay Hargate. Well, the thing is, you completed the book in '04.
Right. Yeah. Matt
So
would not.
Matt-
It was not in that book. He was just coming into high school, and you know,
Yeah.
I would say, you know, Matt certainly would be because Matt has all the scoring records at
Oh,
City.
yeah.
Other than the single game, I think Clay Hargrave still has that single game record of 40, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But yes, but Matt is an incredible basketball player, and certainly would be one of the 2 or 3 best. You know,
Oh,
and
sure.
we had some other a guy named Gene Hetrick back in the 40s. He also played at Iowa, and he led the Mississippi Valley in scoring as a sophomore, junior, and senior, and was a 4-year letter winner actually at City High, which was pretty rare in those days, and was also a letter winner in football, and he was an all-stater in football and all-stater in basketball. And he played. He did track also. So in fact, he won 12 letters, which was up until a few years ago. That was the most letters any individual's ever won. Some guy named Matt Woldrick won 13 letters later on.
Right. Okay.
And he has the record for most letters now.
Yeah.
So
How about any more? We touch a little bit more on any more stories that you'd want. We don't want to give the book totally away. I'm going to tell you, folks, for one thing, I've read this book. And it's a great read. It's very interesting. I didn't go to City High. I'm from Sheldon, Iowa. I wish I would have had a teacher to compile something like this. It's a great read. And like I said, I'm not from there, and I've been reading it, and I enjoy the heck out of it. So there we go. It's a great book.
well, I think one story that always interests a lot of people has to do with the beginning of football, organized football at City High. 1905 or 1906, I guess, is the season. They had football teams clear in the 1890s, but again, it wasn't a school-sponsored sport, and a coach might be one of the players, and some of the people that played on the team might not even be students at City High. But in 1905, they asked the school board if they would sponsor a football team, which they did finally. And they had, in the very first game they ever played, they had a player by the name of Leo Strohmeyer, who was, I think, a lineman. I'm not sure, but anyway, he made a tackle in the game and actually broke his neck, and 2 days later died. Right. So the very first, after finally petitioning the school to have a team, they had a game finally, and the first game they ever played, a student was killed in the game.
Wow.
And but they survived that, and they went on, and they continued to be able to play, and had some great. They had their first state championship team in 1917. Back when the state champions were determined by the newspaper poll. You know, it wasn't until 1970 that the playoff system started. So
right, and there's been some.
And they've had 4 or 5 state championships before that time, before 1970, and before the poll or before the playoff system started.
Right, and the crowds that they would draw too, way back when were.
Yeah, in fact,
many. I mean, big crowds.
In basketball, they had in the 1949 team, which was also a 20-2 team, and they had, I think, 3 or 4 players that went on to play college basketball. But they played a district final tournament game, which would determine who goes to the state tournament. It was scheduled to be played. It was against Davenport, and it was a traditional power in the state of Iowa in basketball. And it was scheduled to be played at Muscatine, neutral court, and they said they'll never be able to get the people in there. So they had it. They moved it to the field house, and they had 15,000 people came to the game. It was it was supposedly at that time the most people ever to see a non-state championship game any place in the nation. But there was 15,000 people in the field house, and Davenport beat City High by 1 point in the final to go to the state tournament, which they went on and won the state title. And City High had beaten Davenport twice during the regular season, so it was one of those things. But it was quite a
wow, what a showing!
Yeah, it was.
15,000 for a.
They used to play. City High used to play not a lot, but they played in the 40s. They would play a preliminary game to an Iowa game. You know, there was Iowa would play their game at 7:30, and at 5 o'clock, City High would play some other team, a Cedar Rapids team or somebody.
Really, at the
field house.
At the field house.
Yeah, it was in the 40s.
Oh wow.
It was. They didn't do it all the time, but it was fairly frequent.
Players would have been excited
Oh,
about
I bet they
playing
were.
in that.
Yes, yeah.
You know, Well, this is a great book. It really is. It's for anybody. So I tell you definitely to get it. Now, how can they get this book?
Well, I do have a few copies left. Actually, it was actually printed in 2004, but I do have some left. I think anybody who's a fan of the school would get or ever went there. I think it would be a good thing for them to have. I've never seen another book that encompasses the entire athletic program. Now, I think I've seen some out there that talk about the basketball history at a school or the football, but I've never seen one. There may be some others out there, but I've never seen one that has the entire history of the school and athletics. I have been keeping track of the things since 2004 so that possibly someone else can come along and make another and continue on from 2005 on, but I'm not sure that I'll do it because I think the fact that I was there for 36 years gave me a chance to put a lot of other things into because I had a kind of a synopsis of a lot of the sports and the seasons, and I do have all the records and all the coaches' names and captains, most Iowa players, things like that are listed in all those that I could find. Anyway.
Oh, this is extremely detailed. Yeah, it's.
So, but anyway, it was really I really enjoyed, and it gave me a chance to give something back to the school that I worked there for 36 years, and they did a lot of things for me, and I donated a lot of the money from the sale of the book originally to the school, and so I think I just think it's a nice service for the school.
I know you're helping out with the University of Iowa track team. How's that going?
It's going great. I am a volunteer coach, and I've been working there. I guess this is my 6th year, and it's really been a great experience. Coach Wazorek is a tremendous coach, and Joey Woody, which is one of my athletes, is actually my boss now. I just do whatever he tells me, and it's a great to be able to contribute. And we were Big Ten champs last year, and we have a lot of kids coming back and some good recruits, so we're looking forward to this spring.
Yep, we just need to keep that going, don't we?
Yeah, we hope so.
Well, that's great. We're all excited for that. Well, everybody, go out and you need to buy. It's a great day to be a Little Hawk. So thank you very much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Craig.
And you take care, Sports Beats fans, and we'll talk to you later.